But there are many children that are being born onto the planet now that have no history with emotion. They have no history with emotion, so they don't really know how to respond. Again, we're talking about two different groups of new children, because there are the ones that seem indifferent and there are the ones that are hypersensitive, yes? So first we will address those who seem indifferent. These are the ones who have no experience with emotion, not only from their own histories with this planet, but through their genetic imprint as well. And these are the ones that you really have to teach emotion to. They still will experience reaction to things. They will still experience sensation within their own body, but they will find it very difficult to recognize in others because they can't relate to it themselves. So they have no reference system for what it is to feel an emotion. And then you have the children who are, as we would say, hypersensitive to sensation, hypersensitive to vibrational frequency. And what they do is they sense a particular vibrational frequency and they translate it into an emotion. Because they don't know or don't have the tools for translating what they can sense vibrationally, the only way that they can translate it for themselves is through emotion. Because when you express emotions to adults, they understand you. Agree? If a young child goes into a room and they feel a particular vibration they don't like from somebody, yes, or perhaps one of your friends they don't particularly like, and they start reacting with irritation, or they start to get a little bit teary, or they start to get a little bit upset, that gets your attention, agree? They wouldn't be able to say unto you, because they don't have the skills or articulation, there is an energy in this room I'm very uncomfortable with. And so they learn from a young age in infancy that if they use emotion, it gets your attention and you understand that something is not quite right here. So it's really these types of children using emotion as a translatory tool, not for their own benefit, but actually for your benefit. So it's perhaps something you hadn't thought of before, is that you as parents know how to read emotion in your children very well. Agree? Aren't you wired to read emotion in your children?
Yeah.
Aren't you taught when you have infants or when you have young ones in your classrooms that you know what all these different emotions mean, so you know how to respond to them? They're cues, agree? Visual cues. So that's what these hypersensitive ones do. What they're really doing is they're very, very sensitive to vibrational frequency, and they're sensing what resonates with them and what doesn't. Yes? Unfortunately, within this human society, there is a lot of education around emotion that tends to be very dualistic. That is beginning to change, but traditionally it's very dualistic, to the point where certain emotions are appropriate to display and certain emotions are not appropriate to display. Which, if you are looking at things from our perspective, doesn't make any sense at all. Because it's exactly the same as saying there are all of these colours in the spectrum of the rainbow, and some of them are okay to use and some of them aren't. Or if you said to a child, here is a keyboard, this keyboard is the array of emotional responses, or responses to energy, we will say, that is available to you, but we only want you to use this part of the keyboard and not this part of the keyboard. It doesn't make any sense, because emotional response, and remember it is always a response, emotional response is like music. It's the young child's way of expressing their understanding of what they are feeling. And a lot of the time, it is what they are feeling externally. In fact, we would say all of the time, it is what they are feeling externally. Now, this is a new concept, and we're going to leave you with this for just a moment. because this is in direct opposition to what most humans are taught about emotion. Because most humans are taught that emotion is all about what's going on in here. And if you've got an emotion going on in here, you need to adjust what's happening in here. Agree? Mm-hmm. That's what you know. That's what you were taught. That's what the sciences say to you. Even in terms of your genetic sciences, at this time on this planet will say to you that emotion is stored in the DNA. The knowledge and memory of emotion is stored in your DNA, but we say unto you, it's always going to be a response to what's happening externally. A response to how you are sensing what is happening. Now there are those that would say, well, it's intrinsically related with the thought. Because if you have a thought going on, that can trigger the emotion. We say unto you, in these young ones, they are sensing vibrational frequency. And because there is an entire keyboard or an entire rainbow of vibrational frequency on the planet at this time, because everything is in flux, there is going to be a whole keyboard of what they are experiencing. And in particular, because they are wired to collective consciousness, not so much their own individual sense of self. This is a major difference in these new children. They are wired for collective awareness. They are more in tune with what's going on in the collective than they are of what's going on within themselves. And yet everything they are taught is what's going on within you. What is that feeling you have? Rather than what can you feel? What is happening? And so there are many children on a daily basis, especially in the last 18 months, that are waking up in anxiety. Or suddenly feel happy and don't know why. It's because they are wired to the collective experience and they're actually sensing what's happening in the collective consciousness of the planet. So it's not useful for them for you to say what's going on inside you to cause that emotion. And that can be difficult for parents and educators because it's directly the opposite of how you've been taught to deal with emotion. It's not about adjusting the internal space, because that's fitting in. And a lot of the time that's suppression. This is about helping them to become aware that their feelings and experiences are valid, and if you can validate them for them, they will become so comfortable with having these experiences of emotion that they won't identify with the emotion. And that's very important, because as soon as you start to internalize that emotion, you wake up feeling anxious. I'm anxious. There's something wrong with me. I'm stressed. You own it. It's yours. Thank you very much. Now try and get rid of it. Do you understand? Rather than teaching them to say, there is anxiety today. There is sadness today. There is anger today. Which is so much more empowering for the child, because then you have validated that yes, they are accurate. Aren't they clever for being able to sense what is happening in the field? But you're not making it their problem. And they're no longer identifying with it. I'm an angry child. I'm an anxious child. I'm a difficult child. It just means that they're a very wise child because they're sensitive to what's going on. So the validation for them is not about what they are feeling for themselves. The validation is, yes, you are sensing what is happening. Do you see it? So you can treat these children like vibrational compasses. Oh, thank you for pointing out that there is anxiety. And then watch how quickly they adjust. They will adjust very quickly, just as the wind changes. So too do they in their emotional states. Can you see it? That's not called instability. That's called sensory genius. Can you see it? So this is not about stabilizing children. You don't want to turn them into robots yourselves. It's about validating them. Do you understand? And the entire keyboard, the entire spectrum of color is part of their repertoire, because you're here on a planet where the entire experience is available. Can you see it? So you know your children are fully functioning if they're experiencing all of it. Fully functioning. Is there a question on this at this point?